And this is Ken Kraetzer for Sons of the American Legion Radio, our Army football huddle. And we are going to talk about Army's 28-27 win on Saturday at Michie Stadium over Georgia Southern, a thrilling game for the Black Knights. And joining us from Florida is Richard Miller. Richard, how are you?
I'm doing very well, Ken. How are you?
Okay, from the Philadelphia area, we have Steve Chaloult'. Steve, how are you?
Ken, fantastic. How are you doing?
Good. Remind our audience what class year you are from West Point.
Class of 1992. I played offensive line and blocked for some of the greats, Mike Mayweather, Calvin Cass.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you join us again. And a regular from the West Point class of 87 and sprint football, calling in from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, we've got Col Sam Houston'. Colonel, how are you tonight?
I'm great, Ken. Definitely better tonight than I was this time last week.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's give you the first shot at it, Sam. This was a remarkable game. Army had 3 fumbles in the first half. They're down 21-7. They kept Tyree in the game despite the 3 fumbles, and he delivered, and the team really showed poise in the second half. Tell us about your thoughts on the game.
It was the good and the bad. Unfortunately, the bad preceded the good, but the bad almost came back to bite us in the butt in the end. Obviously, the decision was made to go with Tyler as a starter. And I'm telling you that by the end of the first quarter at the local watering hole where the West Point Society here in Huntsville had gathered, and I will admit I was one of them, we were ready to say Tyler needs to go. After 3 fumbles, 2 fumbles and a botched a fumble and a botched handoff had led to 14 points, whereas Georgia Southern had only gained 1 yard offensively in the first quarter. And there was no indication at that point of the game to make any of us believe that anything short of a quarterback change would not change the direction of the game. It was just looking like it was going to be an absolute blowout on Firsty Day at Michie Stadium. I got to hand it to Coach Monken and his staff. They stuck with Tyler. The man proved to be an absolute warrior, and he didn't flinch. The whole team didn't flinch. And that's exactly what they did against Tulane, is they flinched every time something went wrong. This time, the offense reacted to Tyler. They fed off of his energy, and they recovered. The defense continued to play well, with the exception of a couple of pretty monstrously blown coverages. And like Steve was saying in our talk before we began, and you, when y'all were talking back and forth, the sequence of events that brought up the tail end of the game was an absolute head scratcher, which we can talk about more. I don't want to bring up some of the questions I had about that sequence of events when Army was trying to run the clock out, supposedly. Some of the calls the refs made or did not make. And then the final time that Georgia Southern had the ball, it was a nail biter for the ages, and the pucker factor was real. The bullets were being sweat, and they were 50 caliber or above at the end of the game. But it was an exciting finish and a very big confidence builder for the entire team to know that they could dig out of such a hole, and making those mistakes early. If they stuck together as a team, they worked together as a team, they fed off each other's energy, and they believed in their coaches. So very happy with the win.
Okay. Let's give Richard a quick shot at it. Richard, you got the Notre Dame game right. And you got the Tulane game right, but you didn't get this one. You didn't have confidence in Army. What happened?
I don't know, Ken. I'm second guessing myself.
Okay.
I thought it would be as much of a struggle in this one. I didn't think it would be as close as it would be, but it turned out to be very exciting game.
That's good. Okay, now let's go to Steve Chaloult', calling in from the Philadelphia area. And Steve, I guess the first thing, why did Tyree Tyler struggle so much, do you think, in the first half? I mean, that first fumble was right in his own end zone. You could see the ball just kind of wasn't tucked away, and it got knocked away. And why was he struggling, do you think?
It had been a long time since he had played quarterback. I think that he was on a pretty big stage against a really, really talented ball club. I think they manhandled us a little bit up front, and we weren't giving him a lot of room in space to make decisions at the mesh point. So, I think maybe the game just was moving a little fast for him early on. I mean, and it's to be expected, for him to come in and jump into a stage this late in the season and to do that. So it could be jitters. I wasn't really overly enthused or excited about the way they came off the offensive line. I don't think, commanded the line of scrimmage very well. All game, I didn't think they did. And I think we dodged a huge bullet there. But I will say that we're still a young team in our process to maturation. This is a needed thing. You look at a Navy team who came out and spotted, Tulane all those points, and they were able to come back because they've done that before. It's ingrained in them. They have that confidence. We're still growing a program to get a little bit of swagger, to know that, not to let down. And that's a process. And I think that process really took a huge step forward while, a portion of it took a step back. So I like the end result. I like the fact that they fought. It was an emotional win for Coach, for sure, for a lot of reasons. And I think it was a learning step for them in the program maturing. So all those were good things. The negatives are definitely, you got to start fast, finish strong, and they didn't start fast.
Okay, and I just want to welcome Jack McGuirk to the Huddle tonight. Jack from our Sons of the American Legion radio team and located in Pelham, New York. Jack, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
Okay. Well, we started to talk on our show today about the game. What was your impression?
It was quite the game. It started off, Army didn't look too well starting off. It was kind of scary when you saw that, they had the ball near their own goal line, fumbled it, and Georgia Southern quickly scores, and they go up 14 points. Then you get into the second half, and all of a sudden, Army just quickly turned it around. It was, to hear Tyler got the start of the game. Interesting note I was reading. This is the first time in the history of the Army football program that they've had 4 different quarterbacks start games in one season. But it was a great game. They had the blocked punt and also a blocked extra point, which who knew that a blocked extra point was going to be the difference as far as the score goes. And then later in the game, you had the what appeared to be a game-clinching interception. And then Army get the ball back. But then, they're trying to run out the clock, and they were called, actually 2 guys in the same play were called for holding. Of course, the penalty stops the clock. And then Georgia Southern gets the ball back, and they're going downfield. And you think, oh, they're going to come back and you get a field goal and win. And then the quarterback gets sacked, and time is still running out. And smart move by the defense, Army defense. They were kind of wrestling with the ball and holding on the ground, which kept the clock going, making so Georgia Southern couldn't, set up quickly and spike the football, which they tried to do. And it looked like, I was watching the broadcast on CBS, and it looks like with the instant replay, they slowed it way down, and it seemed like maybe there was a 1/10 of a second left on the clock when the ball was spiked. But Ken, you were telling me, I guess there's a rule that there has to be at least 3 seconds left on the clock when a ball is spiked.
Yeah, Coach Munka was explaining it, that there's you have to allow so much time to spike the ball. for the referees to call it. Coach Monk can explain that in the post game on Saturday. So they worked out. I mean, I was sweating. I was on the upper deck, out there to take video of the alma mater and watching to see what was going to happen. And it looked like a 45-yard field goal attempt, and it was going to happen on the next play. And no wind, probably pretty good conditions for a kicker, but it never happened. And boy, did the Georgia Southern coach Chad Lunsford really upset at himself for not kicking the field goal when he had the chance with 22 seconds left.
Yeah.
Sam, one of the the heroes this week was Andre Carter, the young outside linebacker, and he not only blocked the extra point attempt on the fourth Georgia Southern touchdown, but then shortly after made an interception to get Army the ball back. What did you think of those couple of plays?
Well, they always say that you're going to win or lose a game on special teams in any given season. And Saturday's game certainly was an example of how special teams can make a huge difference in the outcome of the game. And Army clearly won the special teams battle, which was very refreshing to see after how miserably the special teams had performed against Tulane in every aspect of the game. But Carter, to look at this guy on the field, it is almost hard to believe watching on TV that the guy is 6'5" and 260 pounds. He doesn't look it at all. But he flies around like an incredible athlete. I mean, like the second coming of Javon Curse, if you remember him back in the 90s, I believe, playing for the Titans. A tremendous upside to this young kid, and his impact on the game was amazing. And you could see his humble reaction to the accolades that he was getting, which just shows how much Monken ingrains being a team player into every member of the organization that is Army football. So it was very refreshing to see him on the field, making an impact, making the plays that were making a difference in the outcome of the game, and being able to do that on behalf of the team as a team player. So I see a lot of tremendous upside for this young kid, and to think that he is the size that he is only a yearling means that he's got some growing to do. So look forward to seeing this guy ranging the defensive backfield for a long time to come.
Yeah, he's got a lot of wingspan, and that's why they like him on the blocked kick opportunities. And he's showing it, he has athletic ability to make a quick play on that. I guess, a big lift for Army. I'll ask Steve Chaloult this one, was the run back by Tyrell Robinson to start the second half, ran the ball up to the 48-yard line, got Army a short field, and then they just, ran the ball down the field and got that second touchdown. What did you see Army as they came out for the second half? What did you say?
Yeah, so they, it definitely, you could tell that coach got in their knickers a little bit at halftime. They got the opportunity to take a deep breath and kind of reevaluate, maybe get some of the jitters off, and come out and get into a groove. When you have an inexperienced quarterback and you're coming out and things haven't been going your way, what you just need are reps and just getting into a momentum and like I said, a groove to move forward. And I think that they started to gain confidence with that. But you also see, if you look at the number of plays we ran versus what Georgia Southern ran, it was almost 2-1. I think it was, the 70s versus the 40s. One of the good things about it is you could tell that we were wearing them down as the game went on. And, that's the mark of an Army team, is you seem to get stronger as the day goes on. And when you're pounding at the point of attack like that, and you start putting together 10 play drives, 11 play drives, that's when things start getting a little bit tougher for them. And then there's a confidence level knowing as an offensive lineman or a running back, you know, you get a little extra jolt knowing that, hey, we got them on their heels a little bit and the players started to drop a little bit. So it gives you a little boost of energy, gives you a little boost of confidence. So I think they capitalize on all that stuff. Offensively, I'll tell you though, which has been a mark of Army offenses up to this point is just I'm perplexed as how, you know, we're reluctant to get the ball outside and we're reluctant to get the ball inside with running backs other than the fullback. So, you know, we don't experiment as much as we should, I think, with a counter game and get them off of the fullback. And then we just don't get that ball outside when we need to. And when we had the opportunity, albeit, you know, one of the plays was almost a game changer when his knee just grazed the ground and was called down. You know, getting that ball outside is when exciting things happen. Now, I know, you know, when Coach took over from the Ellison era, one of the problems with the Ellison era is we put the ball in the turf a lot. So, and one of the ways to keep from doing that is to not get out there and pitch it. But heck, we had 3 turnovers under our belt. You might as well just take the training wheels off and let it fling around a little bit. But we're a very predictable offense when it comes to fullback and quarterback ISO or quarterback power. I'd love for us to get a little bit more flamboyant with our offense on that.
Yeah, it seems like the Army offense is so oriented towards going inside compared with some teams. As you said, they're a little risk adverse on the pitch play going outside. And one thing that stood out to me is that Tyree Tyler carried the ball himself 35 times, and that's going to wear on a quarterback. He ran for 121 net yards, 3.5 yards per carry. Jacoby Buchanan had 18 carries for 53 yards, 2.9 a carry. And Santa McCoy 5 times, 17 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they didn't get the ball. I mean, first off, just how is it to have a quarterback run 35 times? I mean, how long can you do that without him taking a pounding?
Well, Ken, really, quite frankly, it won't matter because they'll have a new one next week. So, you know, we don't know who's going to play next week. So, I mean, there's probably an inside linebacker that they're going to bring out and play quarterback this week. But, and I say that tongue in cheek, but, you know, I think we were enamored with his athletic ability, which is undeniable. And they hitched the wagon to him on that. But long-term wise, that can't be sustained.
Yeah. Jack, what did you think about the second half? Right after Army scored off the opening drive of the second half, next possession, they blocked a punt. Fabrique Boy blocks it. Kamonti Yao ran it to about the 1 yard line. And Santa McCoy goes in, runs out right on the field, and everybody's looking at him. They give him the ball. He goes in, gets the 1 yard touchdown run, his second score of the game. What did you think about that sequence, how Army got itself back in the game in the second half?
It was great. Either they made some great adjustments or Coach Monken gave a heck of a halftime speech. Probably a little bit of both, but it was great. And you mentioned before Andre Carter, who I think this is his first start with the blocking the extra point, getting that interception. Heck of a game for him. And they came back to ultimately come out on top just barely. It was a nail biter down last second there, but it was a heck of a comeback with the 14-point comeback. I think I was reading the last time the Black Knights came back from a 14-point deficit was, I think it was 2017. But heck of a win, and Army remains undefeated at home this year. And since 2017, they're 22-2 at Michie Stadium. So they're a tough team to beat at home.
Yeah, and they're fortunate with the way the reschedule worked that they were able to schedule these home games. Now, Richard Miller, do you want to tell us about some of the other games on the top 25 this weekend?
Okay, some of the other games this weekend. Number 15, South Carolina improves to 8-0, beating Appalachia State 34-23. Number 6, Florida 38-17 over Vanderbilt. Number three, Ohio State beat Indiana. Ohio State improves to 4-0 on the season. BYU improves to 8-0 on the season, 66-14 over North Alabama. Wisconsin and Northwestern. Northwestern is now 5-0, a 17-7 victory over Wisconsin. Cincinnati 36-33 over UCF. Cincinnati is now 8-0 on the season. Number 11, Oregon 38-35 over UCLA. Oregon's ranked number 11 in the country. Alabama beat Kentucky. Alabama is now 7-0 on the season. Some of the game, a double overtime game in Tulsa, a 30-24 victory over Tulane, and Ole Miss and Texas A&M were postponed.
Okay, thank you. Anyone want to venture a thought on who are going to be the 4 teams that go to the college football playoff? Looks like Notre Dame this year could be back in the picture. Alabama, maybe Clemson, Ohio State, maybe. Anyone else?
No, Notre Dame. I think it's going to be Notre Dame, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State.
Okay, let me ask our huddle. Should the college football playoff be expanded to 8 teams to get more conferences, a team into the picture? Sam, what do you think?
I'd be in favor of that. It seems that when you have a limited size of college football playoffs and you limit it to 4, you're going to leave out somebody like Cincinnati, who's having a great year. They're undefeated, and they had a very close game against UCF. It was at UCF this past weekend, but they came through in the end and came through with a victory to keep their unbeaten team and hopes to make the college football playoff alive. And it by expanding the college football playoff, again, you can reach with outside of the Power 5 conferences for teams that rise to the top and actually have a phenomenal year. I use Coastal Carolina as an example. I'm not saying Coastal Carolina should be in the college football playoff, but they're having a phenomenal year. And the argument could be made at the end of the year, if they go undefeated, that why not? If a team goes to the college football playoff with a loss and you have another FBS team that's undefeated, the argument is always going to be there that they need to expand the bracket to ensure that other teams, a wild card per se, has the opportunity to get into the playoff.
Okay. Steve Chaloult', who are you going to take for the college football playoff if a one-loss Clemson, who played Notre Dame without their starting quarterback, or are you going to take Cincinnati if they remain undefeated? Got to put your...
I got you. Yeah, I mean, that's not even a discussion. I mean, Cincinnati's a decent ball club. They're not in the caliber of a Clemson, and I'm, Sam, a little bit different from your aspect. I'd like to see the best teams play, not necessarily with the schedule. A favorable schedule. You put Louisville against or Cincinnati against Clemson. That's a 30-point differential. So you got to go. Yeah, you got to go with the better teams.
Okay, Jack, what do you think? Any other team that should be in the mix for the college football playoff?
Oh, it's hard to say. They're all top teams there, but a couple of teams I'm keeping an eye on. You mentioned Cincinnati, who's undefeated, but also BYU. They're doing very well. They're 9-0, nationally ranked number 8, right behind Cincinnati. Also, Florida is doing very well. Texas A&M. But it looks like right now the top 4 are Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Clemson. And the expanded playoff idea you're talking about sounds like a great idea. I'm sure the NCAA would love to do that because more playoff games means more money.
Well, the NCAA would like to run it.
Yeah.
They like to do the basketball tournament. The playoff system now is run independently of the NCAA, and so that's an interesting perspective. Richard, any team that you think should be in the mix?
A team that I think should be in, definitely BYU and definitely Cincinnati. Those are the two teams because they're
Well,
right behind each other. BYU and Cincinnati should be in the mix, and definitely I think this field needs to be expanded to like 8 teams.
okay. Well, BYU did not get the opportunity to play at the stadium that's on our visual. At Mikey Stadium, they had an opportunity to come in, and because of COVID outbreak at their campus, they had to cancel their trip. And there's been no discussion of rescheduling that game that I've heard. I guess in the schedule, I was kind of wondering if Army might have rescheduled the Massachusetts game this weekend with the Corps Cadets staying at the post for Thanksgiving. I was kind of wondering if they would suggest trying to get a game just really as a kind of an event for the cadets to enjoy over Thanksgiving. But that doesn't seem to happen. I know Army's got practices scheduled all of this week. And then the great conjecture, I'm going to give both of our alumnus a chance to say, is there any, what's the latest on Air Force? Is that December 19th date going to be going to possibly happen? Steve, what do you think?
Well, so rumor has it, there is a small chance that they may play Air Force this weekend. Very small chance. Remote, almost a Coastal Carolina in the final mix of football type chance. But Colorado State has been having some issues with COVID, and they're testing today to figure out whether or not they're going to play that game with Air Force. So it has been discussed as a possibility for this weekend to be a date, but
Wow.
But it's looking like the 19th as we sit here now, which will be interesting because the Corps is supposed to be going home after the Navy game. And would they keep them there for another week for an Air Force game after that, considering they're not going home for Thanksgiving and they're going to, stay through New Year's. So that remains to be seen. And there's also an issue. One of the issues that we don't think about logistically is, the winterization of Mikey Stadium and playing Army Navy there. The reason why they haven't had a winter classic there, even though we tried to get a hockey game there, is they just can't seem to winterize that stadium. It just wasn't, built for that time of year. So all of those play into factors of interesting tidbits on having a December 19th game and what the effects would be on the Corps.
Well, I'll keep looking at my email to see if an Air Force game is announced for this week. I did check their practice schedule. They're practicing on Friday, but that is always subject to change. Sam, what's your thinking on that?
First, I had not heard what Steve shared, so I appreciate that he did share that because I have yet to see any chatter about Colorado State and the possibility that the game that they have scheduled with Air Force is going to maybe not come to fruition due to COVID. But I'm sure that if the possibility or if the opportunity arose, that Army would embrace that chance to actually play the Air Force game prior to the Army Navy game. And another reason would be that 3 weeks of being off can work against you in trying to get ready for the next game. And given that right now, if nothing changes, the next game is Navy, I think it would be to Army's advantage to play a game between now and then, whether it be Air Force or UMass or whoever. December 19th, that definitely has been thrown around often and back and forth like a hot potato. I've heard that, yes, that looks like that would be the date. Air Force is open, Army's open. Then I hear that, well, it is the week of term end examinations. The Corps is not going to be there anymore. And then there's a small rumor that continues to fly around, if there's actually a faction of people who are trying to get a voice heard for this one, is that Air Force is trying to backdoor their way into the Independence Bowl to play Army in the Independence Bowl. I'm sure the Pac-12 would have something to say about that, forfeiting a payout. But the biggest overriding concern that I keep seeing flare up in all of the discussions I see is that Army, and I agree with this, does not want to have the Air Force game upstage the Army-Navy game. Army-Navy is America's game, and it has top billing the way it does for a reason, and the tradition is there. So the rumor coming from a lot of people who generate the Army rumor mill is that Air Force is trying diligently to schedule the game so that it's played after the Army-Navy game, so that it will upstage the Army-Navy game. So a lot remains to be seen. And then I'm hoping that it does get scheduled, because as I pointed out, I received my commemorative ticket in the via FedEx today for the virtual sellout. And I don't want this to be as close as we come to actually beating Air Force this year. So whatever happens out there, if anybody's listening to this at Air Force and at West Point, please schedule the game, get it played, make the Commander-in-Chief trophy live up to its legitimacy this year. And you only can do that by playing the game. So we'll see what happens.
Is January at all a possibility, do you think?
Well, I still say that if it is a possibility, then it needs to have the built-in contingency that it's 2020 rosters playing each other, because Air Force, as we all know, and we've had this discussion over and over again, Air Force was the academy that had the unmitigated foresight to allow 30 players to turn back and not even go to school this semester. An unheard of event in academy terms. Not surprised that the Zoomies would do something like this. And there's still the rumors flying around about the reason Air Force canceled the first game was not COVID. It was the fact that they were down to their depth chart because of the turnbacks was such that they feel that they could field proper depth in certain key positions if they came and played Army that week. So again, playing in January, I don't think Jeff Monken, from what I've heard him say, is in favor of doing that. And as he puts it, the season, the 2020 season is the fall of 2020. January is when the 2021 season begins in preparation for that. But if that's what it comes to, it needs to be at Mikey like it was originally scheduled to be, number one. Number two, it should be after the Corps gets back so they can attend the game. And number three, Air Force's turnbacks, if they want to watch the game, they can watch from the comfort of their day room at the Air Force Academy, watching it on TV.
Okay. So we'll leave the scheduling. We'll wait for more information on what may happen. We do hope that the game of the Air Force can be scheduled so that we can have a true Commander-in-Chief trophy competition this year. Now let's go back to another key question for Army is a quarterback situation. Army's basically had 6 quarterbacks on their depth chart this year. Jabari Laws was day one expected to be the starting quarterback coming off of a strong season last year, but the injury he suffered late in the season had not fully healed, so he has not played. Coach Monken has said he has mentioned him as a possibility, but I can't imagine they're going to bring him back this late in the season versus trying to request an extra year of eligibility for him. Christian Anderson has started, played well, then got hurt. And then I thought that he came back to play the full Tulane game. Not really. I don't think it was his best game. We've had Maurice Ballard go in as the next man up and played in one game, played well, closed out a game effectively. We have not seen him since. And then you had Cade Ballard started the San Antonio game and did well. And then with Tyree Tyler going in, they kind of split the day for the win at San Antonio, and then coming back for the next game. And but then they have not played in a couple of games. So Coach Munkin gave the start to Tyree Tyler, who had come off the bench twice this year and played effectively. Let's see, Steve, what do you think about the quarterback situation? What do you think? How do you see it working?
For the first time in a long time, I'm scratching my head. I just don't know which way we go and which way we go towards for Navy. The circles that I run with, and we talk and we text, and during the game, they all like Cade. It reminds them of a Mike Makovic or a Rick Roper type of guy that's a gamer, that's a little thicker. We're enamored with 123-pound quarterbacks, and we end up with dinged up and moving around. We got somebody with a little bit of thickness, and the thing with Cade is he doesn't know how to lose. He's never lost. He hadn't lost in high school, hadn't lost in college. So there's a little bit of a head scratcher there, and there's a story somewhere that we don't know about. But like I said, it's hard for me to understand what that story is right now. So we've got some time to figure it out, but it's a head scratcher for the first time, and it's a tad bit frustrating. But we'll see. I mean, if we don't come forth we're not going to get the opportunity to spot points to Navy and think we're going to come out on top. So we've got to come out guns a-blazing and figure it out. So hopefully, and Munkin we trust. So, we sit back and off we go.
Yeah, I kind of thought they had a winning formula with Cade Ballard starting, and then Tyree Tyler coming off the bench and giving them spark, getting his strong running ability. Cade Ballard, two 53-yard pass completions on the season, consecutive games, one for a touchdown. Beautiful throw to Tyrell Robinson down the right side. Sam, what do you think? What do you think Coach Munkin is going to do? I mean, do you think at this point he's committed to Tyree Tyler for the Navy game?
Well, as Steve was saying, we're all mystified what the decision-making process is. It's got to be something that if we reach back into our old cast cube military decision-making process deck mat, and we punch in some numbers, we can figure out how he's coming to his starting quarterback decisions each game. So I'll just give my assessment of where I see the quarterbacks as far as who I think should be where on the depth chart. Tyree Tyler he's a diminutive quarterback who's very explosive. Yes, he is very fast. He's a gamer, but he's not a starter. He's too small. And he keeps taking a pounding like he took against Georgia Southern. He's going to get hurt. And he's also prone to fumble. And that was not only obvious in the game against Georgia Southern, he fumbled in a very critical moment of the UTSA game, late in the game with about 3.5 minutes to go, and Army mounting a classic Army drive to run the clock out. He did what you can't do. He put the ball on the ground to give UTSA another chance. So that has to be taken under consideration. So my assessment of the roster is that Cade Ballard should be the starter. He should be number one on the depth chart. Tyree Tyler, in my opinion, is a situational quarterback, much like a wildcat in the NFL. He comes in, runs the shotgun kind of formation like Malcolm Perry used to do last year, or like he did a lot against Georgia Southern, in specialized situations where his speed is needed, a spark is needed for the offense. Number three, in my opinion, would be Jamel Jones, but I don't know where he is on his injury. So I can't say for certain because we never hear any injury updates from Monken about where the quarterbacks are. Heck, we didn't even know for the longest time that Jabari Laws was out for the season because we kept seeing him on the depth chart. So Christian Anderson, in my opinion, all things being equal, everybody 100% healthy should have never started a game this year. In my opinion, he's number 4 on the depth chart. And if you look, the 2 worst offensive performance games of this season, Cincinnati and Tulane, were games that Christian Anderson started and played the whole game. Those 2 games accounted for a total of 15 offensive points total. And Christian Anderson, when you watch the games where he plays, the offense just does not rally around him. They do not, they just are not energized by his performance or his leadership. So the guy's got talent, but until you have someone in the game who is a true leader, who in that huddle is in charge, and who the offensive linemen, the running backs, the receivers, the tight end are looking at, and they have confidence in to lead them down the field, much like the offense had with Ahmad Bradshaw, much like the offense had with the 2018 version of Kelvin Hopkins. When the offense went into the game, they might have got the ball on their own 1-yard line, but they believed when they went in the game they were going to drive 99 yards for a touchdown, and nobody ever even had a single doubt. That's not the way the offense responds when Christian Anderson is in the field. And so that's my assessment of the quarterbacks.
Okay.
When Navy game comes around, we'll find out, but I think that Cade Ballard should get the start against Navy.
I would tend to agree. I kind of just like the formula. I thought that was a winning formula they had with Cade Ballard starting. And we'll see. They've had Christian Anderson started the Navy game last year. And how did you evaluate his performance, Sam, last year in the Army-Navy game?
Christian Anderson?
Yeah.
Well, you know, when they came out, they had essentially some scripted plays to begin the game with. Navy's defense wasn't really set. They hadn't made any adjustments. And so he did lead a successful drive down the field. But once Navy's defense made some adjustments, Christian Anderson, he mentally checked out of the game. His confidence level gets shot very fast. And where his confidence level goes, so goes the offense. And the offense responded accordingly. The offense never really got anything going the rest of the game. And there was never any decision made about putting in a different quarterback. And the offense just sputtered and sputtered until it actually just completely sputtered out as though they had given up.
Yeah.
And they made no adjustments for the adjustments that Navy's defense made. I got to admit, last year, I've been to a lot of Army-Navy games. Last year was the worst time that I've ever had at an Army-Navy game. And I'm including other games where the Squids came out on top. It was just a disgusting event to watch.
Well, Jack, you were following Air Force's game when they were out at New Mexico this week. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, that ended up being a 28-0 shutout win for Air Force over New Mexico. That was out in Colorado Springs, which seems like an impressive win, but New Mexico is having a rough year. They're 0-4, and all of their games have been on the road, so they've been traveling constantly. But Air Force is now 2-2 after the win, and they had 422 yards total offense, 356 rushing. One impressive thing about the game, sophomore fullback Brad Roberts of the Air Force led the Falcons with 177 yards rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns. Hazik Daniels, a quarterback, had 4 completions for 66 yards, rushed for 55 yards, had a 4-yard touchdown carry. Now, an interesting note, in the second half of the game, Air Force actually fumbled the ball on 3 consecutive possessions. New Mexico recovered all 3 fumbles, but they were unable to capitalize on them. They on all 3 cases, they tried kicking for field goals, but all 3 field goals missed. Maybe it was a win day in Colorado Springs. Air Force with the win there, shut out 28-0. And Their scheduled next game is this Thursday, Thanksgiving, against Colorado State. But we were hearing earlier that things may change, so we'll have to keep an eye on that.
Yeah, that's a good tip from Steve. We'll have to watch, see if that game, if there's any scheduling change with that game. And Richard Miller, do you have games you're going to be watching, and do you have a big forecast for one of those? You have your weekly forecast for us.
My forecast for, well, Saturday is the Alabama Auburn, the Iron Bowl. Alabama is number 1 in the country. I think they'll win that game by 3 touchdowns. I think actually the top 4 teams in the college football playoff that I mentioned, they will all win.
Okay, who are the games? You got the games there?
All number 22 Auburn against Alabama, number 3 Ohio State against Illinois, Pittsburgh against Clemson, Texas A&M against LSU. That's it. Number 6 Florida against Kentucky, number 7 Cincinnati against Temple, number 11 Northwestern against Michigan State, number 12 Indiana taking on Maryland, number 13 Georgia taking on South Carolina, number 14 Oklahoma and West Virginia, 7:30. Number 18 Wisconsin taking on Minnesota, Coastal Carolina number 16 taking on Texas State, Colorado at number 19 USC, Texas Tech taking on number 21 Oklahoma State, Louisiana at UL Monroe, that's a 3 o'clock start, number 24 Tulsa against Houston, that's a 12 o'clock game.
Okay. Okay, now we were talking a little bit at West Point on Saturday about the arrangements for the Army-Navy game and the visit by 4,400 members of the Brigade of Midshipmen. I understand they're going to be in one end zone, and the Corps Cadets are going to be in the opposite end zone. I guess spread out amongst the sidelines. They're not going to be in the east stands is the plan so far. Steve, what do you think Army has to work on between now and then to get set for that game?
You know, I think they need to get healthy across the board. Just, you know, get a little bit of rest, get ready to roll. Offensively, I'd like to work on, you know, whoever quarterback we come forth with is to work out some rhythm, try to get the ball outside again, try to get some counterplay. Let's loosen up this defense a little bit. I think it's definitely a winnable game, but as with anything else, you're looking at the mirror across from you. So, I mean, it's just going to be a battle of wills at that point in coaching. I don't think our coaching plan last year was as good as it could be. I think I feel we get tight as the year goes on in terms of of being hyper focused on the B-backs. So get some confidence in the quarterback's hands to be able to be a little bit more loose with the ball, and just have fun with it. I mean, this is the thing about this season is this is a season it's a freebie, right? Nobody was expecting to play. Nobody was expecting that this would even happen. So if there's any time at which we just need to play loose and go out there and enjoy it as if this would be the last time to do it, because it almost was. So, I'd like to see us open that up a little bit, and just be prepared to go have fun and be a little loose.
Okay. Hey, one thing I want to mention, the defense played well. And the two safeties have played very well for Army, Cedric Cunningham and Markel Broughton. We talked to Markel in the post game. They both had 12 tackles in the game. Cunningham had 2 tackles for loss. And then Eric Smith and John Radican, the 2 inside linebackers, both had 7 tackles on the day. Nolan Cockrell had a couple of big plays. The defense looks pretty solid. Do you see it improving as the season's going along, Sam?
I want to say that I do, but there have been some cracks in the ice that have appeared, and on the theme of what does Army need to do to be prepared for Navy, I'm going to put a big check mark and concur with everything Steve said. And I'm going to get to the defense in just a second. Where offense is concerned, one thing that they really need to look very hard at is they need to look at last year's game, and they need to look at Brian Newberry's defense and the adjustments that were made by Navy as the game progressed. I know that Navy doesn't have some of the same athletes they had last year, but they do have some of the same players from last year. And the adjustments that Newberry's attacking style defense made actually absolutely stifled Army's offense. And it was more apparent as the game went on. Then what they need to do is they need to make an overlay of what they see from Newberry's defense against Army in the Army-Navy game last year, and do an overlay of what they see of Newberry's defense doing this year with the talent that they have, and prepare for what a reasonable expectation of what type of adjustments they can expect from the Brian Newberry coach defense to do against Army's offense this year, and be ready for that. On defense, this is another animal, Ken, because defense, in my opinion, has not played as well as the season has progressed. If you look at the last two games, and then the last two games, you'll see that they've given up more yards rushing than they had been giving up prior to that, and they've given up more yards passing. And nobody would have thought that Georgia Southern was going to come in and put points on the board by throwing the ball. When we had this discussion last week, we were talking about Georgia Southern was not going to really represent that big of a threat to Army by passing the ball. And then if you look at the passing stats, they're fearful. I think that Georgia Southern only had 2 passes that weren't completed. One of them was intercepted and one of them was dropped. And the number of times that Army got burnt on a option play fake for a deep pass, that is something that ought to give a big concern going into the Navy game. And if you look at Navy's offense this year, they have not been running the ball as effectively as Navy teams in the past. It might be a talent thing. I don't know. It might be a coaching thing. But what they have been doing much more effectively than Navy has been doing in the past is they've been passing the ball like crazy. And they've been passing the ball accurately and effectively. We mentioned the Tulane game from earlier this season. Navy was down 24-0 at halftime. They didn't get back in the game by running the ball. They got back in the game passing. And they have absolutely put up some amazing passing numbers for a Navy team, for a Ken Kraetzer team this season. And that kind of effectiveness in throwing the ball out of the option and watching the way Army had played against the pass against an option team in Georgia Southern is something that needs to be worked on. And Nate Woody, I hope, has got his team in the drawing board and taken a hard look at Navy's use of play action, Navy's use of passing from the triple option, and making sure that his defensive secondary is not biting on the fake the way they bit on the fake against Georgia Southern. Otherwise, we may find ourselves getting burned a couple of times on some long passes. And so those are the things that Army needs to work on. Now, just again, Army's defense, don't get me wrong, they've been MVPs all season. They've kept Army in games. They kept Army in the Tulane game until late when they were put in some hopeless situations. They kept Army in the game against Georgia Southern. So they do have an excellent bend but not break approach that has been very effective. But if you just look at the stats alone, their performance has actually waned a little bit in the past few games.
Yeah, there was a concern. I mentioned this to Markel Broughton in the post game that in the first half, Georgia Southern got the 24-yard pass to the tight end, Cam Brown, wide open on the left side. And then later in the second half, their quarterback Wirtz, 39-yard pass to Logan Wright. Again, 2 big plays that Army gave up in the Georgia Southern game. Jack, what do you think? What does Army have to work on to beat Navy in a couple of weeks?
Well, Sam was just making a great point about the defense. Giving up 27 points at home is very unusual this season for the Army defense. Also, they should keep an eye on, Navy has a couple of games coming up before the Army-Navy game. Army doesn't have any. This weekend, you have the Navy-Memphis game, which is one to keep an eye on. That could be a close one. Both these teams, Navy and Memphis, have had games against Temple and SMU this season. Although the games that Memphis had with those teams were a lot closer. SMU had that blowout win over Navy. The win with the game with Memphis, it was actually a 30-27 win for SMU, much closer game. So this is a game that Memphis might be able to pull off a win.
What about, Jack, you mentioned, I think I read that Navy may reschedule the Tulsa game for the following week, right before coming to West Point.
Yeah, they it's going to be on the 5th game against Tulsa. So, they have a couple of games coming up.
That's a lot of football for them to play. Any thought on from the Huddle on is that an advantage for Army to have rest, 2 full weeks of rest before? Didn't seem to help against Tulane, and Navy going in playing one game after another. Sam, you're shaking your head. What do you think?
I don't think so. I don't think it's an advantage to Army. Remember that football is a game of repetition, and you get better by performing the reps. And the more games you play, the only X factor that we're really talking about here is the injuries and the wear and tear on the players. Navy is getting real game time practice for 2 straight weeks. And barring they have something disastrous occur, like what happened before the 2016 Army-Navy game, when, both Will Worth and their starting A-back got hurt on the exact same play and were unavailable for the Army-Navy game the very next week when Navy was playing in the AAC championship. And by the way, Ken Kraetzer still makes excuses about the Army-Navy game that year because of that injuries to Will Worth. But, it really showed the next week where Navy had to bring in a fresh quarterback in Zach Abey, who performed admirably in that game. I think the disadvantage actually is to Army to take 3 straight weeks without a game and come in rusty with a potential of being rusty like they were against Tulane, and getting behind early to a Navy team that comes in very motivated and having not had any layoff that would cause any oxidation on their muscles that would cause them to rust and freeze up and make mistakes early. So one thing that we all know from the Army-Navy game and the history of the Army-Navy game, and Steve knows this more than all of us, and I know it from the sprint games against Navy, is that you can't make mistakes. You can't turn the ball over. You can't have stupid penalties because this game, everything is at stake. And the other team will take advantage of your mistakes very quickly, and it can come back to hurt you in the end. So
very good.
That's my assessment.
Okay. Well, any other thoughts from the Huddle before we break? And it's been a good session tonight. Richard Miller, what game are you going to watch this weekend?
What game am I going to watch this weekend? Alabama, Auburn, the Iron Bowl.
That's always a big one.
Yes.
Certainly for the Southeast Conference. Steve, final thought on the night?
I'll be watching the Army Air Force game this weekend. Yeah, very small chance. I've been looking at their site, and Colorado said they haven't announced anything. There's an infinitesimal amount of chance that we would play this weekend, but I'm generally been channel surfing between the games. It's interesting to watch certain teams playing on TV that don't get a chance to play on TV on a regular basis, and end up on prime time and doing all those other things. And to watch, I'll tell you, just watching teams like Indiana, right, a perennial bottom dweller, doing well, Northwestern rising up and doing that in the Big Ten, seeing Penn State doing what they're doing, you know, it does make for some good drama, and it gives an opportunity for us to do some things and see some things we normally wouldn't see, and that's exciting. And it gives you know, it rejuvenates the way we look at college football. So I like watching those obscure games, you know, watching a Coastal Carolina or an Eastern Carolina or, you know, teams like that. I enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. Okay.
And Jack McGuirk, you get the final word tonight.
Well, I'm definitely going to be, if there's an Army Air Force game, I'll definitely watch that. I'll keep an eye on the Air Force Colorado State game on Thanksgiving Day. Also Navy and Memphis on Saturday. And I guess if you're an Army football fan, you got to keep an eye on the Pac-12, see who they're going to be facing in the Independence Bowl.
Yeah, Army's going to play the number 5 finisher this year. Normally it'd be the 7th finisher, but it's going to be the number 5 this year, according to the Independence Bowl chairman. And that could be a really interesting team that Army has not maybe ever played before. You know, it could be a USC or a UCLA. They played Stanford a couple of times, home and home, not that long ago, or one of the Oregon or Washington teams. So we'll see. Okay, I want to final thoughts, Steve?
Okay, real quick. I mean, you know, just because there are alignments like that, ESPN and the bowl committees can switch up. I think, was it 2 years ago when we played San Diego State? They moved conference alignments to make a better game work out. So we're saying Pac-10, but if any year it could be any team, it could be this year. So just I would keep an eye out on that. But I think there'll be a lot of moving around. There might even be a game or two canceled. Who knows at this point? So, you know, Pac-10, it might be, you know, Big Ten. Who knows?
Yeah, that's what I heard from the chairman of the Independence Bowl, Frank Auer, that a couple of bowls were canceled. So his game moved up to take the number 5 team from the Pac-10. So we'll see. Going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of shuffling, and hopefully as many of these games can be played, everyone can stay healthy and safe is the most important thing. Okay, I just want to say thank you to everybody in the huddle. Richard Miller calling in from Florida. Steve Chaloult' from West Point, a graduate. Tell me again, Steve, which year?
92.
92. I'm going to learn it like I know. At Sam Houston is a member of the class of 87 from West Point, calling in from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, and calling in from Pelham, New York, Jack McGuirk from our Sons of the American Legion radio team. And we just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. And we know that there are members of the U.S. military serving all over the world, Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, Marines. And we think of them as they're out serving the country or even serving at a training base in the United States. Many cannot get home. And there is a great tradition of base commanders serving the Thanksgiving meal at bases. And it's a tradition we've learned about, and I know bet some of you have participated in. So just want to say happy Thanksgiving, and we'll be back to you very soon with another edition of the Sons of the American Legion Radio Army Football Huddle. Thanks, everybody. Have a good evening.